a Build Hatch developed production.
Hello, I'm Aaron Kyle and welcome to another episode of Build Hatch. On this week's episode of Build Hatch, I got to sit down with Chris from Alternative Construction Group in Melbourne. Alt Construction Group is one of Melbourne's premier construction companies and some of Melbourne's leading architectural and commercial projects. I really enjoyed this week's chat with Chris, and I particularly enjoyed hearing about the process that Chris and the rest of the company operate with, and the little tips and tricks that work for small businesses in the construction space. Plenty of insightful info and little gems in operating your business in the building and construction industry. So let's get into it. Chris from Alternative Constructions, welcome to Build Hatch.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
That's all right. Now, we always like to go back in time and find out how you became Alternative Construction. So did you grow up here in Melbourne?
Yes, I did. Yeah, just in Ivanhoe. So nice and local.
So what sort of hopes and aspirations going through school or after school?
Oh, it's definitely a soccer player when I was younger, to be a professional footballer. That was number one.
That was the dream?
Yeah, and I don't know, priorities change as you get older, and it slowly jumped into construction. I've been around it all my life, so it was pretty easy.
Do you have like a family history in construction?
Yeah, my dad's a builder and his brothers are builders. So from a young age, I used to flip properties. So we used to live in one section of the house, renovate the other, and then move in the renovated section and slowly work on that for years. So maybe since I was about 10 years old onwards, there's just been one reno after the next, really.
Australia's second favourite pastime really is renovating and flipping houses. It's a real obsession. All right. So what did you do after school? You were sort of talking about being a soccer player. Did you realise, well, because I come from a family of builders, so I was going to enter that industry? What were you thinking back then?
You know, a couple of injuries from soccer kind of led me into time to take work a bit more seriously. So I studied my diploma at RMIT, and then just labouring, learning to be on the tools led me into working for a commercial company, Haser Group. So I did that for a couple of years, which was a great experience.
So was that carpentry?
This is more contract administration, so purely based in the office, but on site.
Yeah, right.
So we're working on a shopping centre in Tarneet. There's a pretty large shopping centre, so just seeing the admin side of things compared to being on the tools was a great insight to seeing how the overall company ran. That was probably the fire that ignited jumping into things with the family eventually.
So you basically started off working in that sort of CA role, that contract administration role. You're involved in working for a commercial builder. So what sort of led you down the path of alternative constructions?
At the time, my dad was slowly getting back into construction, so he met up with his cousin, and they decided to start doing their own renovations and working for clients again. So at the time, it was my dad, my uncle, and a carpenter, and he called me sometime in 2016, I think it was, and said, "Look, we're getting a bit busier. Do you want to come and join?" And pretty much starting from scratch. So we started at a retail fit out for Nelson Alexander, and that was pretty much our first key job. And ever since then, it's slowly gotten bigger and bigger.
So word of mouth referrals, that's always a big part of business.
Yeah. I didn't believe in it as a young, naive kid, but I realized that it's 95% of the business, word of mouth. Yeah.
It is. It's good old fashioned marketing. And all right, so you were looking after a commercial fit out. So what sort of projects did you go on to do from there?
A lot of extensions, keeping the existing facade and extending out. There's been some new builds, all residential. There's been a few commercial jobs, but mainly residential. So the high-end residential, where you've got the architect involved as well as the client.
And so what's a typical day-to-day role for you at the moment in that business?
Well, I try and stay typically in the office, start my day in the office. We have labourers that we send off from here if it's deliveries or bringing material to site. So we base ourselves from the office, and then our day slowly disperses from there. So for instance, we'll manage 8 to 10 projects just from the office, and on each site we would have a foreman, a carpenter foreman, an apprentice, and a construction manager, which will run around to the site. So we try and base the office as the hub, try and do all of our paperwork, our phone calls and communication to the clients and trades from the office, and then just try and keep the sites separate, so no one gets intertwined with what role is happening, or you need something ordered, it comes through the office, and then we'll disperse it from there.
Yeah, it's a great way to look at it, almost like satellites. The sites become satellites, and
Exactly.
you've got that mothership that's controlling the business. And I like what you said there, where you have these, allocations of a construction manager or a labourer or a supervisor that they're allocated to those individual satellite sites, but you've got that mothership. Everything comes through the mothership.
Yeah, definitely. I think as bad as COVID was, it actually helped to streamline a lot of the communication. Paperwork is pretty much redundant now from our end. Everything's based in the cloud, and we're just trying to really focus on that communication of where it has to go to, make sure everybody is on the same page, rather than back in the day, it was always drive to him and have a face-to-face chat, where it's easier just to do something on FaceTime, even if you have to look at something on site from FaceTime. So it's been a interesting past 2 years out of the 6 years of our existence.
Yeah, look, it's great. And I mean, what are some of the tips and tricks, if you like, with whether it's a software thing or a systemized thing or a scheduling thing, or could even be a certain day of the week that you do a certain thing? Like what's something interesting that's come out of that and you thought, well, this works really well in how we run our business?
Yeah, definitely using OneDrive, document sharing. So instead of having multiple documents where we always have to print and update new pages that the architect might install, we have OneDrive. As soon as we get the file, we upload it, and everyone that's affiliated to that site will automatically get an update. Something as simple as that, or calendar notices, something very simple on Microsoft Teams. Just if something's getting delivered to one site, instead of calling guys saying it's around the corner, on Teams it'll say delivery at 7 a.m. Or it's just little things where we're actually looking at the calendars and daily programs more than what we have in the past, because that's our job, is just to focus on what's next rather than the day to day. So yeah, it's definitely Microsoft Teams, OneDrive, and everything cloud based. That's been the real push for the last 2 years, especially.
Yeah, look, at the risk of sounding a little bit controversial, I actually believe that the way calendars are viewed in terms of how you view your day or your schedule, particularly running a construction project. I mean, if I can go back in time and reflect on using, say, Microsoft Project, for example, like the use of a Gantt chart, and back then, and I know they're still used today, but the world has become so quick now. It's almost by the time you forecast something or schedule something on a Gantt chart, it's blink and you've missed it. Like
Yeah.
it's that kind of mentality. Whereas I find the easiest way to do things, I mean, you have an overall outlook of the job or how long it's going to take, and you might break it down to maybe months to help with certain scheduling. But I think we've now become a little more fragmented in a good way, where you could kind of think, okay, today's Friday, I'm going to schedule next week. And I've given the guys an indication that they were going to, there was going to be a big rush on to get something done in time. So I'll use calendar to schedule it in, and that notifies them. And then you can kind of see it from a daily point of view. And whereas in the old days, you kind of had to see it on a Gantt chart.
Yeah, definitely. And accountability is a big thing as well. To say, okay, you wanted this stone vanity installed by Friday. I'll put it in the calendar, and then if it's not the correct date, well, both the contractor and I, a notification will come up. It was meant to be installed Friday, but now you're telling me on Tuesday. So it's kind of like, we all want to stay honored to our word, because sometimes if someone misses a date, it's not it's not him that we're worried about. We're worried about the four trades that follow, because then they all have to shift a week back. So it's a lot of double handling in terms of programming, it changes daily.
It does. And, you've proven my point in that it becomes a tool to lock people in, to schedule something. But if you're particularly in the current climate, and maybe that's why we're in this position, but if we're trying to schedule something for 2 or 3 months down the track, like, it's going to change as much as you can possibly forecast for it and schedule in the current climate. It's just not going to happen, I don't think.
Always, yeah. And just the delays with material, it's making life a bit harder, but I think you just have to try that extra harder to keep the clients notified, the architect, every trade. So that's our main job, just to keep everyone on the same page, because you can miss a day and it'll put everything out of whack.
Now, you mentioned Alternative Constructions is a family-based business. There's a couple of family members working within the company. So for the people listening to this and considering working with your family or they're running a family business, tell us what that's like.
Yeah, I like it. I've heard some mixed opinions of people outside of the family about working with your family. It's like, oh, I couldn't do it, but we're managing it quite well. I think we're fairly like-minded. If something's out of place, you'd let them know, like working with any other colleague. So that's, there's no grey area. It's either one way or the other. So there's no favoritism. It's just if you do something right, you're rewarded like everyone else. But if something goes wrong, everyone will have a chat and figure out how to evolve and make sure it doesn't happen again. So yeah, no complaints from me.
Yeah,
Especially this is recorded as well. So
no pressure, of course. But I think it comes down to respect and having respect and just wearing the different hats. And I see quite a lot of disputes between siblings and family members. And one of the things that I think shines out of the successful ones, and there's no hard or fast rule that makes a particular methodology work for all families. It just comes down to, if two people are mutually respectful of each other and aware of each other's challenges, whether it's emotional challenges, family challenges, or environmental, site challenges, then that seems to work. If one isn't respectful, then that's all it takes is one out of the two. The whole thing can come down. So it's always, and there's nothing unique about successful family businesses. There's plenty of them in construction, and a lot of successful families doing some really good things out there.
Yeah, definitely. It's probably some values brought in from my grandparents that arrived here from Italy many years ago on their own. They didn't have many friends except for their community. So, and also their friends were their family. So families means everything. They're your blood. And I think those values have passed on in the years, and we've been able to reflect that within the company as what we were taught from our grandparents years ago. So
now you've been working on some of Melbourne's finest architectural projects, and one of the standout ones that you've just recently completed is your Primrose Street one in Windsor. So can you tell our listeners about that project?
Yeah, sure. That's from CSA Architects, Sarah Stribley Architects. It was a corner site, and it was 2 townhouses. You had a ground floor townhouse facing one street, and on the other opposing James Street, it was over 3 stories. So ground floor garage, first floor living and bedrooms, and the third floor was a terrace overlooking the city, which is spectacular in the end. But it was a very tricky build in Windsor, especially with those tight streets.
Tight little streets.
Yeah, definitely. But
not
we
many
managed
parking
to pull it
spots.
off. Yep, ticket inspectors were were out, but we managed to do everything by the book. So
Look, I know what it's like, and it almost becomes a point, particularly working around that area, and there's plenty of them where it's just like, yeah, I'm just going to have to risk it because the cost of a parking ticket by the time I drive around the block 5 times or park 200 meters down the road, like it's just not worth it sometimes.
yeah, and the trades let us know about it. That's for sure. Yeah, there's not much you can do.
So there's some pretty impressive finishes with that job as well. So what are some of the sort of standout features?
I would say the engineered flooring that usually typically goes on the floor. We lined the ceiling with the engineered floor, which looked really incredible throughout the bedrooms and the hallway and leading out to the kitchen. So it was just that one finish where you've got your floor to ceiling windows and you've got this beautiful engineered ceiling finishing up into a little recessed pelmet for your blinds. It was something that I've never seen before, and I think it really looked good on that project. Yeah,
Yeah,
especially that
look at
area in Windsor.
yeah, it is. It's that sort of hip, sort of nice urban feel, and real sort of quirky architectural kind of stuff. And so, what did you finish that with? You said it was an engineered ceiling, but what did you finish that with? Like the actual finished surface of that?
Oh, it was. I think it might have been called walnut engineered. So it comes like pre-finished board, and all that we had to do is cut it and fix it into the ceiling. So it comes pre-finished and pre-oiled. I think it was made by Story, and our carpenters. We've got about 8 carpenters. So our carpenters, we work on our own carpentry, but we also subby a lot out to trades. So our carpenters were able to install that engineered board quite easily because it's already pre-finished. You don't need to paint. You don't need to paint over the existing surface.
Yeah, great. No, look, it looks pretty impressive. Now, Chris, when you're not busy working within the family company, what do you like to do outside of work?
When it's good weather, sit on the beach, relax, unwind. Yeah, no, that's pretty much me. It's going to be me this holidays. So I just like to relax, catch up with friends. Especially if I haven't seen a lot of people in a long time. So yeah, just like to catch up with people and have a bit of a social event.
What about, like, in terms of problem solving? Like, have you ever had a problem in day to day business where you've thought, this is really challenging? I'm not sure how I'm going to overcome this. And you thought, who am I going to ask to try and work this problem out?
Yeah, it really helps with my dad being in the industry for 30 to 40 years, as well as my uncle Rob, the construction manager. So anything really crucial that might be beyond my experience or something that I haven't seen before, I'll ask them. That's a huge advantage of this company as well. We sometimes we do things on our own accord, we fall over, but at least we have some experience that we have someone to fall back on and ask. So it really helps that Richard and Rob have been through all the hoops, and I think they're still learning as well. There might be something they've seen for the first time. So if we can't have an answer, we'll then outsource and come together and maybe find a solution ourselves. So we try and have weekly meetings that we can actually do that, and try and always schedule in like a Thursday meeting at this specific time, because if we change that meeting, then we might be 2 weeks delayed on a project because we didn't have the chance to flag it early. So a part of the scheduling is also a part of our problem solving. So it kind of comes all hand in hand. We're fixing multiple issues just by scheduling our time a bit better, and that's
Yeah, I think that's important. And I
COVID.
mean, people have different names for them, whether it's project control group or it could be general managers meeting or work group meeting. What do you guys call it?
Team meeting.
Team meeting.
Team meeting. We're a
Yeah,
team.
nice and simple.
Yeah, we're not. Yeah, call it what it is. Exactly.
All right, Chris. So what's on the cards for alternative constructions and the rest of the group?
Definitely growth. Like I don't really seeing us stopping anytime soon, especially this next generation. So, building. I'll focus on the relationships within the business first, then outside of the business, building like a good core. I think we've at a really good stage right now where we do have that, and we're slowly implementing a couple of people. So focusing on expanding the team to cater for all the work coming up in 22 and beyond. So it's some jobs are in the pipeline, which are really exciting. Some new projects for us as well, a bit bigger beyond what we've done in the past. So yeah, a lot of exciting opportunities, and hopefully our team can expand and continue to pave the way for the future in the next generation.
Yeah, look, it's exciting to see, and it's always good thinking ahead and reflecting on yourselves as a business and the growth and the opportunity that comes with that. Is there a way that you measure that? Like if we need to get some more people, like do you have an actual process, or does it get brought up in meetings, in your team meeting that you have? How does that work?
Yeah, definitely gets brought up in our monthly meetings with our business consultant. And because there's so many moving parts of the alt group, there's a couple of directors, some other investors. We like to get a diversify everyone's opinion rather than someone dive into one option. He has to put it to the rest of us just to make sure we're all on the same page. So that kind of helps us not to move too quick and not to hold back, because you have 4 or 5 other people and their opinions. You have our business consultant as well, which can also give his advice of what he's seen in the industry. So it's very measured. It's calculated risk, a lot of calculated risk with a bigger team, and being from a team environment, I think that's key. If you want to do it on your own, you can go slow, but if you go with a team, I think you can. The sky's the limit. So I think that's where we're kind of heading, not to grow too fast, but small incremental steps for the end goal of
And a
being
calculated
around for the
way.
next being around for the next 70 years. This is not a short game for anyone's feet. I'd love something to pass on to the future, the younger generation. That I don't have kids yet, but the next generation. So yeah, it's
Yeah, it's
here for
special.
the long game. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what it's about, and being methodical, like you said, and and just putting in the right systems and having those strategies. And it's a bit hard to know where you want to go if you're not looking at where you are at the moment and reflecting on that as a whole as well.
Definitely.
Does alternative constructions have any sort of future aspirations to do your own property development and things like that? It always seems to come up talking to builders on our show.
Yeah, absolutely. We're actually starting one next year. Yeah, so it's a property and putting 2 townhouses on it in Eaglemont. So yeah, we're really starting to do our own thing on the side. I still like to aim with to get work with architects and clients. I think that's very important. We still want to be hold our reputation as a high end builder here in Melbourne. So that's going to be our key focus, and development's just going to be on the side.
Yeah, look,
When
it's I've seen it go the other way where so many builders make the mistake of going across and becoming a developer, and they might make a lot of money out of that first development and think, well, this is great, but the cash flow, or lack of cash flow rather, that comes with that creates issues, and it's a very different hat, almost a different beast, if you like, between a builder and a property developer for yourself. And there's quite a few that don't do it too well. So it's good to understand and be aware of that hanging over your head.
Yeah, development's just a bonus. Definitely working with clients, designers, uh, and architects is our key focus, even across all the businesses.
How's the, I guess, supply chain and logistic issues sort of affected your
Oh,
business, and how you've had to adapt with that?
yeah, it's been a bit hard, especially with the timber most recently. That's slowly at a plateau phase, but yeah, we were trying to buy timber and store it because we didn't know what would happen to the market, and lucky we did, because there was a pretty big shortage with materials, everything coming from China and Europe. It's very hard to predict your programs and when things are arriving and when trades are going to install. So it is a bit tricky, but I think not just not just the suppliers, but now the clients, the architects, designers, everyone is on the same page and understands these are COVID times. Something is bound to get delayed. At least we're all on the same page, and it's not just, buying Christmas presents. It's even affecting everyone just living their day-to-day lives, not just the industry itself. So
Yeah, that's right. I think it's that heightened understanding and appreciation of one another as a society, not just in construction but everywhere. Um, so it's one of those things where the majority of people are doing the right thing, trying their hardest under the current circumstances, and pushing ahead with delivering what they can do.
yeah, definitely.
All right, Chris from Alternative Construction. Well, thanks for coming on to Build Hatch. Now, if people listen to this who want to reach out or get into contact with you and discuss their upcoming projects, what's the best way to go about it?
Yep, they could jump on our website, which is altconstruction.com.au, or on Instagram, alt.construction.
All right. Well, I encourage everyone to check out their Instagram. we'll put some photos up on our feed as well, and just to show particularly that Primrose Street job in Windsor that you've just done. Looks pretty amazing and special. So well done to you, and Chris, thanks for coming on to Build Hatch, and look forward to staying in touch.
Yeah, thanks for having me, mate. Really enjoyed it. Cheers.
Well, that was another Build Hatch episode with Chris from Alternative Construction Group. Chris and his team are doing some wonderful things in the construction space, so I certainly encourage you to check them out. The last few weeks have been extremely busy. We've continued to roll out the Build Hatch marketplace, and there's certainly been lots happening in that space. There's still plenty of rising prices, tricky delays in sourcing regular products and materials, and we are the first people to break what's going on in the industry right here on this Build Hatch marketplace and podcast. As usual, please check out our own Instagram page and other socials where you'll be able to learn more about our guests and some of the features of the work that we talk about. Have a great week, and you hear me again on the airwaves next week. Thanks for listening to another episode of Build Hatch.
You have experienced a Build Hatch developed production.